Welcome to Scale Differently, where we explore what becomes possible when your business is fully aligned with your vision and enables you to live a rich, fulfilled life. My name is Krista Grasso, and after spending more than 3 decades helping founders take their beautiful Big Bold vision and turn it into incredible, highly profitable, and highly impactful results, the one thing that I've learned is that scaling is just as much about energetics as it is about strategy and mechanics, and that even the very best strategy will eventually hit a ceiling if the founder isn't able to grow into the type of visionary leader that can hold the vision that they have. Every week, we explore what it takes to think different, lead different, and scale different in a way that's simple, sustainable, and fully aligned with what makes you and your business unique and with your definition of success and scale. Let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to the first interview in a brand new series that I'm doing that I am super excited for. And I'm really excited for you to meet today's guest. So if you are unfamiliar with Celi Arias, you will be by the end of this episode, and she is pure freaking magic. She is a growth genius. She is a scaling genius. Sometimes I think that we are the same person and we just somehow show up as two different people in the world because our backgrounds are so stinking similar. And she just is so smart in the way that she approaches things. And this series is all about scaling differently. And I could not think of a better person to kick off this series with than Celi because of her background and her history. And I'm going to let her talk to you a little bit about what she does and her story. But I just want to share some fun, similar facts here before we dive in. So if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know that the first big brand that I scaled was an international jewelry and accessories brand. And all of the things that I learned throughout that business have shaped what I do with businesses today, because I made plenty of mistakes learning the first time through how to build an accessory brand, how to grow that brand, and then ultimately how to scale that brand. And there are all sorts of different skills and a plethora of opportunity to spend a lot of money and make a lot of mistakes in the process. And so much of that was such a great journey and such a great evolution for me growing as a founder, and also in learning so much of what works and what doesn't work, and how scaling looks so much different than growth, and what it really takes for a business to be successful and be sustainable. And that has shaped a lot of what I've done today. And then let me tell you about my friend Celi here, who just so happened to go ahead and build and grow and scale and sell a global fashion brand. And she now helps people grow their business, scale their business. You hear me talk all the time about the 9 engines. She has a brilliant framework diving into the 6 engines that she's going to tell you a little bit about today. She just created a new app. So, Celi, welcome to the show. Tell everyone just a little bit about you. And we're going to have a fun conversation, kind of breaking down what I feel like is the conversation everyone should really be having about what it takes to really grow and scale a successful business, especially today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm actually so excited about this conversation because I think it's such an interesting time in business. And I'm like, ooh, I get to talk to my internet twin about this, and let's see where the conversation goes, right? So you already said it. I am a scale strategist. I love growing people's businesses, figuring out exactly what they need to do to grow their businesses, because I too made all the painful, costly, scarring mistakes in my first 10 years of founding a business in my 20s. And I have built a tool that today actually helps people scale their business by telling them exactly what they need to be doing week over week. So it's a super exciting time. Yeah, we get to talk about it.
Yeah, it is such an exciting time. And I don't know if you're noticing this as well. I feel like every single conversation that I have with a business owner these days, they're in the middle of some kind of what I'm calling identity evolution. For some, it's a personal identity evolution. They're realizing that they want to be in a different role in their business. They might be in a different season of life. There's something they're experiencing that's then influencing the business. For others, it's very much a business identity evolution where they either are wanting to do something totally different or they don't want to do what they've always done in the same way anymore. And either way, they are like ripe for change. They can see what they don't want anymore. They have a picture of what they do want. They don't exactly always have the bridge on how to get there, but they're in this season of change. Have you been seeing that same thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think in my own business, kind of unintentionally, but definitely in my clients, my gosh, I mean, I'm kind of running through the list in my head and I'm like, yes, check, 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 check. I think that with the introduction of AI being really usable and user friendly and speeding up the possibility of certain things, that's created new opportunities for people. There's a lot of problems with it as well, which I'm curious what you're seeing around that and what your thoughts are. But if you're using it wisely and well and you're building an infrastructure on AI in your business, it can be a very exciting time. You can build that new version of yourself that you've probably been thinking about for some time. Or, I think that my clients and myself included who are having an identity shift in their business, it's not new. It wasn't like last month or a few months ago they decided to do this. It's like something they've been wanting to do, but now it's just become more possible. And I think that's what I'm seeing. And there are certain things that in online business that were really trending for a long time are no longer working. I think that is true. And so that's caused some people to pivot. So I think there's some things that are a market push, right? External factors pushing in on us, and then the internal factors of wanting to change how we're running our businesses, pushing against that and kind of shifting and creating a new path and a new way for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing the exact same thing. And the reason I'm so excited to have this conversation with you is you've gone through a pretty significant business identity evolution, even in the closing and the selling of your fashion brand
Mm,
into what you do now. And I know that one was a hard transition for me. It
mm.
was a necessary one at the time. And ironically, I'm going back and restarting my jewelry brand, which I'm so excited about.
I
But
love that.
that being said, so you're hearing it here first, all. But that being said, like, how was that for you, and what was the catalyst for you making that shift? And then I'd love to dig a little deeper into some of the amazing lessons you brought with you.
Yeah, I wish I could say that that shift was really inspired. At that time in my life, it wasn't such an inspired shift. It was more of an exhaustion decision. Um, I think when you're running a business for a really long time, the hard way, and you're kind of doing everything yourself, and you are the bottleneck, even if you've grown and you've grown revenue and you have global sales, if you don't actually understand the mechanics of business and the mechanics of growing and scaling a business, it still all falls on you. And I ran that business for 10 years. And I think I'd reached a point of exhaustion. And so my pivot was I got an MBA because I wanted to figure out the things that I hadn't been able to figure out on my own. The MBA was not the answer. It was fun. I love learning. I'm a nerd. So I had a great time being in school and case studies and all the things, but the MBA didn't answer my entrepreneurial questions and existential crises on how to grow and scale a small business. But what it did was introduce me to interesting people. I got into a conversation with somebody and I ended up finding somebody to sell my brand to. And in doing so, I was hired by a tech company actually to be their director of marketing, then turned director of ops, because I understood this tech company was in the fashion manufacturing. So I had like let go of a 10-year identity because I was just exhausted. I was like, yes, I'll sell you the brand, I'll sell you the inventory. I need to just take a break from this. And then my pivot was kind of like, who am I? What am I doing? And I'm working for a tech startup? What is this world? But, you know, the hindsight is also always 2020 because the roles that I had in that interim, it was actually in the roles of being in other small businesses and even in corporate sales where I put together the pieces that I had been missing in my first business. By sitting in some of those seats, I was like, oh, okay. This is what I never figured out or did for myself in my first business. And that's kind of how I put together the 6 growth engines and even started seeing this is what I messed up. This is what I did wrong. This is what I'd love to help people not do and not experience what I experienced. So I feel like some people are having a chosen identity shift, right? Of I'd love to be in my business in this way. I'd love to remove myself from delivery, or I'd love to remove myself from so much team leadership or management or whatever the thing is. That for me, it felt more like a forced, like I'm exhausted. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I have to figure that out. I was also in my early 30s when I sold that business. So, luckily I still had time to figure it out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things I find with anytime there's an identity evolution, I feel like people are either kind of moving towards something or moving away from something.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were in a space where you were moving away from something while figuring out what you wanted to move towards. And I think that the way you approach it can be a little bit different in both because when you're moving away from something, you often do have a lot that you want to figure out so that you can bring the best with you without repeating or bringing the patterning and the things with you that made you want to walk away from something in the first place or feel like that chapter was done. Whereas when you're moving towards something, I feel like even though it sounds like that's this great path and it's all sunshine and rosy, you still have a lot of things that you don't want to pull forward with you and you want to be really intentional with. It's so fascinating. And I love that in those roles in between, you were able to fill in some of those things that I'm going to guess very much influences a lot of what you do today and how you help businesses.
Yeah. I was mostly just moving away from burnout. And
Mhm.
this was
Oh, yeah.
before burnout was really a word and a popular thing to say. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. But what was interesting is that because I'd been a founder, I was a founder at a really young age. I started my first company. I actually started my first company when I was a kid, and then my first like global fashion brand when I was 23 officially. And so, what was interesting about taking that energy into a position somewhere, my bosses loved me because I took major ownership of everything. Because I kind of approached my director of marketing and then my director of ops and then my sales, but I approached it as I own this. Like, this is my business. So, I took my entrepreneurial spirit into roles with me, which was great on one hand, still exhausting. Because it was still that like I have to do everything. I have to prove myself. I have to be everything to everyone all the time. But what I did gain from those experiences was every seat, while being an employee was not perfect for me, which was what I discovered on that journey. Every seat taught me a piece of the puzzle that I'd been missing. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but what happened to me over time was, oh, this is why entrepreneurship is so hard, because there are all these key pieces that we need to learn and then pull them down and put them together like a puzzle. And it takes us many, many years to go, oh, I learned this piece. I've learned this piece. Now I've learned this piece. Now I can start even putting together this weird Lego masterpiece in front of me. Right. And so that was what became fascinating to me was, oh, this is why it was so hard, because I wasn't able to really do that without having sat in these specific pieces and understanding and mastering sales versus numbers versus marketing versus ops versus product creation, delivering, manufacturing, right? Um, and so that was the part that I got really interested in figuring out was, well, gosh, like if everybody is having to figure out entrepreneurship that way, it's going to take all of us a really long time. So how do I make that easier? And how do I give you all the pieces so that you don't have to go work in all these companies and sit in these different seats for many years to finally go, okay, I think I got it. I think I know how to build a company and build a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so fascinating because when I think back, I think we started our businesses probably around the same time. And when I think back then, there really weren't a lot of people mentoring, especially in an e-commerce space. There were
Oof.
very, very few mentors. You could hire a sales rep or you could do certain things like that. You could go to
Right,
the different trade shows and
right.
like there were different venues, but there weren't coaches, there weren't strategists, there weren't people like there are now. And I remember even the first coach that I ever worked with, she coached service-based businesses. I was the only product-based business in
Mm,
the program. And so I had to do all of this translation of everything to, okay, I get the concept now. How do I apply this into a product-based business and get it to work? And it's so nice to see how so much of that has shifted and expanded over the years. But I think also, like, good for you for figuring it out and getting your business to a successful place, even if you did feel the edge of burnout and exhaustion that ultimately led you to move, and then continuing to keep learning and creating something to shortcut that path and all of the kind of painful experiences of learning sometimes that people don't even realize because you don't know what you don't know
oh my
until you've
gosh.
experienced it.
Yeah, it's kind of obnoxious when those sayings are true, like the you don't know what you don't know, and what got you here won't get you there. It's obnoxious when you're like, ugh, that saying is really true. But in my 20s, I lived in Argentina, so there was even less of this access to coaches and mentors, and I didn't even understand the online space back there. I did have a mentor who was a family friend, and he was an accountant and in pharmaceutical sales, and he had his own business, and he was a pharmacist. And he tried, poor man tried. He tried to teach me about the importance of understanding like my basic business math. And because I was a creative and a fashion designer and a dancer, and I just was like, that's not relevant to me. Your spreadsheets are not relevant to me. My business is going to succeed based on creativity and the design, and that people want the design, right? And I mean, obviously I was wrong, but I really believed that. I really wanted to shut him down and just say, yeah, that's cool, but that's not for me. And I think we all do that to some degree in business. Even today, my clients do that. But that was looking back what inspired me to go, how would I teach a younger me about the importance of numbers or the importance of clear messaging and positioning? Or how would I teach that younger me who believes I don't need to do that? That's not relevant to me. I can build a business without looking at these things. And that's what's made me kind of that curiosity of, oh, I know this stuff. He tried so hard to tell me. And he it was always this joke because he was always just like, oh my gosh. He was like, Celi, how does 25-year-old Celi know more than a 70-year-old man? But that's always what's interesting to me now is like, he was right and I couldn't hear it. And so, how do I make things now super simple and fun and gamified in a way that people can go, oh, that's it? That's how I understand my expenses and how I understand how much I need to pay myself and how much I need to make and how much I need to charge for each product or offer. Like how do I do that in a way that it makes it fun and people go, oh, okay, cool, thanks. Now I know my numbers. And that's what I'm always thinking about because of my unwillingness to really listen when I was younger. I don't know if you had anything like that or if there were things that you just avoided because you're just in it, or did you listen to your coach when you had the coach, or you managed to figure it out and like apply it to you?
So here's the
I was
irony of,
basically like, the rules don't apply to me. So I
oh
don't
yeah,
know how you were.
100%. But the worst part was I knew the rules inside and out because I led a parallel life. I have my entire life. I consulted in Fortune 500. I've been scaling businesses since I graduated college.
Ooh,
It was accidental. I didn't intend to scale businesses for a living.
yeah.
But I was managing a Starbucks, and one of my morning customers pulled me aside and said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Oh, I've been trying to find a job. I graduated with this thing called an MIS degree, and I'm not entirely sure what to do with it." And he said, "I've been watching you every single morning. I have a position that I think would be really fantastic for you. Here's the company." And it was literally a company I tried to get hired at twice already. And I was like, "That sounds amazing. Of course I'll take it." And he
Wow.
said, "I need you to start tomorrow and I need you to come in as a consultant." And I was like, I don't know what a consultant is, but sure, I just got a job. And I was so
Wow.
excited that I got a job out of college. And I went into this company in what was a project management role. And I quickly realized the company was scaling very quickly. It was growth through acquisition. They were buying other companies, and then
Mm.
we would have to integrate those companies in and get everyone on the same systems. We would need to introduce new products to market, and we would need to do it in a way where we were integrating together people from all of these different backgrounds and approaches and systems and tools and ways of working and ways of thinking. So we would build the team and we would come up with shared understandings of the product vision. And I mean, this was what I did since I was like 22. And so I had
Wow.
done this in parallel the entire time. I knew how to scale a business inside and out. It was what they hired me to do. I was the expert that they brought in to do this for big companies. And I was like, that's a big corporation.
Right.
I have a creative business. I'm an artist. I
I'm an
make
artist. Right.
jewelry.
It's
Like,
different
that
for
doesn't
me.
apply to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I finally realized, hold on a minute. Why is it that all of the businesses that I consult with, I'm like tripling their revenue? We're bringing new products to market faster. We're integrating and leading these beautiful teams, like all of these different things that I'm doing with them. And my own business is having 100% opposite results. Like maybe I should actually pay attention and see if there's something that I'm doing over here that I could apply into my own business. And I locked myself in a hotel room. I was at the point where I was going to have to close my business, and I literally locked myself in a hotel room. I showed up with sticky notes, a folding table, flip chart papers, the whole thing. I redid the whole room, and I said I'm not leaving this hotel room until I figure out how to save my damn business. And that
Wow.
was what I did, and I sat in that hotel room, I think it was like 4 days, maybe 5 days before I left, and my epiphany moment was, "Why am I not doing in my own business what I do for all of the other Fortune 500 businesses that I scale for a living?"
Yeah.
Like, what? And so, yeah, but I had that exact same realization of it doesn't apply to me, and this is from someone who knew how to do it inside and out,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
feel
like,
like you win. You win. I always
no,
have so much guilt and shame around that, but I'm like, you are even
yeah,
doing that as a side, and yeah, it's
exactly,
funny. I
like,
mean, like I teach stuff now. In my tool, for example, there is projections, a sales projections builder. I learned this in corporate sales. I learned it the hard way, so I've made it beautiful and painless and like easy to understand and easy to see, and it's gorgeous. And there's a sales pipeline in there with probability to close, and it's super, super simple. I learned this in corporate the painful hard way. And when I teach it to people who are using my tool and in my programs, I've had people who also come from corporate and go, oh my God. Yeah, I know this stuff. And I wasn't even considering applying it now to my coaching or consulting or service-based business. I was like, yeah, it's exactly why you're not hitting sales goals. Because this stuff that you think it's irrelevant to you, but it's actually just a part of business and it's a part of growing and scaling a business. So, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and so there's 2 things you said there that I think are really important is A, like, you just heard both of our stories, different stories, but we did the exact same thing. We thought that things did not apply to us,
Mm,
and I think this is such a common pattern where it's very easy to look at your own business and say, "Yeah, but this is different, and because this is different, it doesn't apply,"
right.
or, "I don't need to do that," and the reality is there are certain foundational things that every successful business has in place. You may do them differently than someone else, but you still need to do them. And it's finding the way for them to apply. And by nature, I think we gravitate towards the things that we love. I wanted to design jewelry all day long and do photo shoots.
This is
I
what my
didn't
whole
want to look
method
at
is about. Krista,
financial
you're speaking
spreadsheets,
my love language. This is what I
right?
talk about all the time. I'm like, you are going to want to build your business on your zone of genius or on your area that you feel more comfortable in. So when shit hits the fan, if you're good at marketing, you're going to tend to go and do more marketing. You're not going to go, let me go look at my numbers and my pipeline and like my positioning and my product. Like you're not going to want to go look at these other areas that you don't feel good in. You're going to you're going to double down on the things you love. And
Yep.
that's what we all do. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Mhm. And so what I think is super fascinating about your approach and what you've done, and I want to talk about this from a couple different angles,
Hmm.
is you've taken, okay, here's all the things that you need to do. Like,
Yeah.
sure, everyone might do it a little bit different, but you need to know your numbers. You need to do these things. You need to approach these things. You talk about it as six engines,
Yeah.
right? But what I think is really fascinating that you've done is not only have you made it clear and simple for people, which is I think the first hurdle most people need to get over is being able to understand it, know where to focus, which you've done beautifully. But it also, I love the gamification
Hmm.
aspect of things that I think makes people naturally go to do something they would not normally naturally go to do, which is a really smart logic. And so before we get into the details of that, what I want to talk about is the path to you getting there because we talked about a bigger identity evolution in the beginning of this call,
Hmm.
but this was a different type of identity evolution that I think I'm seeing in a lot of other businesses manifest differently.
Yeah.
But you saw things changing in the market, I'm assuming. You
Yeah.
saw a way to be able to take your knowledge and your expertise and what you've done and deliver it in a different way and shift your business model in a way to really get results for your clients in a different way. So, how did you get to decide to build an app, first of all? And then walk us through like, how did you approach the way you did design it so that it helps people get results?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I worked my way through businesses and became a COO. I helped sell two different businesses after selling mine, and then I met some guys, and they were like, "We're hiring a head coach. Do you want to apply?" And I was like, "Sure." And I became a head coach at a coaching firm. There were things about that model that I loved and things I didn't agree with. But what I noticed was, when you're in charge of a certain amount of private clients as the head coach, you're also in charge of the other coaches and you're responsible for their success rate with their clients. So I was responsible for 50 to 60 clients at a time. You get to see pattern recognition. And so at the beginning I thought, "Oh, I'm just a master diagnostician. I'm really good at diagnosing the problem." Because what you think is the problem, when you show me your cards and we kind of lay it all out, I'm like, "No, Krista, that's not the problem. The problem's right here and it's blaringly obvious. Let's just fix that." I am good at diagnostics, but I think at the end, that wasn't really the thing. What I discovered was, of course, when things get uncomfortable, when the house feels like it's on fire, you're not going to take the time or energy or investment to learn or develop a part of yourself that's underdeveloped. You're going to double down on where you feel comfortable, where you feel strong, and you're going to go harder. And this is where we start running faster on the hamster wheel and where we get burned out because it doesn't dawn on us to go, wait a minute. Business is based on all these interconnected systems working together. And if I just keep focusing on making the best product possible or having the best marketing possible, if I keep focusing on one area, I'm neglecting the rest. We don't think that way. We just think, in the past, my marketing used to work, so I'm going to double down. I'm going to do more content, right? And so I started noticing, oh, maybe it's not that I'm such a good diagnostician. Maybe it's just that human nature is to spend time where we feel comfortable when things get uncomfortable. And so I ultimately, I went to my executive team and I one of the things was I said, why don't we just build a master control center, like a CEO dashboard that shows our clients all the big key moving pieces in one place so they can kind of see the health of all these key things rather than us being the ones who were poking and prodding and pointing and no, you need to go over here. No, you need to go do that. Because that was creating a relationship of codependency that I just didn't think was cool. As an entrepreneur originally and at heart and not a coach at heart, I was just like, we just need to show them the whole game and be like, see, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at the dashboard. What's it telling you? And in this meeting, I was shut down pretty hard and I was told that was impossible. So little stubborn, a little bit bratty. Whenever you tell me something's impossible, unfortunately, it like flips a switch in my brain. And that switch is really hard to switch off. In some places in my life, it's been very useful. In other places, it's not useful. But it just always stuck with me. Like, is it impossible? Is it impossible? So it just stayed with me. And over the years, I moved away from that role. I started my own consulting and coaching one-on-one. Then I created a group program based on this concept of if I could get you to look at those other areas that you don't like looking at, and if I could do it in the most fun, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl kind of way, right? Where you're like, oh, crap, now I know my numbers. This is wild. I know my profitability. Holy crap. Like if I could make it like that. My goal was, how do I build fully empowered entrepreneurs? And so when I started doing that and I started a group program and people were getting results if they were willing to look at these things, I was like, okay, now back to that dashboard idea. Because what was happening was these key things that you must have in place for a business to grow and scale were living in Google Sheets. And I find that Google Sheets stresses people out. If you do not like a Google Sheet, like I once did not, it in itself makes you stress out, makes you not want to look at it, makes you not want to look at your numbers because you're already having kind of a visceral reaction to it. So I knew, I was like, oh, that dashboard idea that I had from the beginning was a great idea because I need to create something that gets people to look at what I need them to know and what I need them to look at without it being something that dysregulates your nervous system, without it being something that makes you uncomfortable or nervous, makes you feel like it's easy, makes you feel like it's something that you can look at and make it fun. And so then I went down these rabbit's holes of like, who do I work with? I've interviewed so many dev teams. This was years ago. Like I started on this journey about 4 years ago. I remember I have a business partner now who is the CTO of the company. And we talked about it years ago. I remember saying like, I want to build this tool that even other coaches could use with their clients. Because also, if you've ever been a coach in a coaching firm, you end up working your tush off, and consulting firms do this as well, but for a small percentage of what the client's paying the company for. So you're the one who's working 50, 60 hours a week as a coach, and you're getting a very small percentage. And I was like, what if I made this like master control center that even empowered coaches to make their jobs easier? So you don't need, you can go and use the tool with your clients and get your cut and call it a day. We started talking about that 4 years ago, before there were the tools to do it faster and that we basically ultimately did it ourselves. But that was my ultimate goal was, how do I make you look at all the things you have to look at in your business and make it fun and make it painless and get you to know the things that you need to know. And that was the question that I kept asking. And I just talked about it. I didn't know how to build software. The first time I got a quote for building software, the quote was $500K. So I was in this process of saving up my profit to eventually one day pay for it. I was on that journey because I was like, I really want to build this. I really believe it needs to exist. I really believe people deserve to see how their business is doing and to know what actually needs my attention this week. Because a lot of entrepreneurs walk around going, I'm not really sure what to do. I'm not sure what my next right move is. I'm not sure what I need to focus on. Is it this message or is it this message? Is it this email or should I be at networking events? Is it this or is it that? So what if I could make a tool that makes that fun and light and every week you kind of know what you're supposed to be doing, right? That sounds fun to me. So that's how it started. The gamification part of it, I was like, you and I know this is complex and there's a lot of moving parts to a fully fledged working business. So I was like, how do I make it fun? How do I make it easy to understand? And so I thought, well, in a dream world, if you could hire your C-suite team, you would, right? If you could, you'd hire the bomb CFO, the CMO, the head of sales, the ops director, you'd have the team and you'd be like, woo, loving life, right? But for small business and entrepreneurs, that's not always possible. So that's the image that I created was the 6 engines are, if you had a C-suite, what would each of them own? What are the tasks? What are the tools? What are the metrics that each of them would have to report to you, the CEO? Like if you had a meeting with your COO, here's what she'd say. She'd be like, boom, 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 boom. If you had a meeting with your CMO, what would they report to you? What would they say? If you had a meeting with your head of sales, here's our lead count, here's our new leads in, here's our close rate, here's the pipeline, here are the people that are stagnant and not moving. We need to follow up with them. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? So that's how I built the 6 engines. It's like, imagine if you had that team reporting to you. Well, now there's a dashboard that reports to you. And so that's kind of how I've built it, is like, what's the most fun, easy way to understand something that is, in fact, involved and intricate and complex. And I was just laughing at myself this weekend because we joked about this. I still make mistakes. I will still throw myself under the bus. I was bitching to my partner last week, and I was like, so in the dashboard, you see all 6 of your engines, and you see your engine health, and you see how you're performing in each department. And I was like, I'm over here working my tush off, and my score in the sales engine is still really low, and I have a bunch of leads in there. And I literally was like bitching at him because I was like, I think your scoring system is off, because I can't possibly be that I'm still like getting a 2.7 in my sales engine. And he was like, well, I mean, based on the scoring system you created, this is your weakest engine right now. And the reason was you have a bunch of leads that you've added recently because you've been talking and you've been doing webinars and you're creating lead flow, but they're all in the lead stage and none of them have moved forward into the sales journey. They're all sitting in leads, and probability to close is all about how close do your leads get to the finish line, which is something I teach. So he was like, you might have a lot of people in there, but if they're all stuck in the lead stage, you're not crushing it. And so I was like, oh, that's really funny. Like my own system kind of told me, Celi, you're good at content. I'm a creative. I have a creative background. I can make content for days, right? My CMO engine, it's really healthy. I have like a 8 something score in there right now, or 9.2 or something. And my CRO engine was really low. And I was like, oh, that's literally telling me I need to just go follow up with some of these people who've been coming to my workshop on each engine and my webinars. I need to go do the uncomfortable thing and sell. And that is actually my weak spot. Like, it's not my strength. And it literally told me. I was like literally calling up Tyler, like, this is broken. And he's like, no, it's actually correct. You haven't moved any of the leads forward. And I was like, oh, okay. I will go follow up with people now. Okay. And that's kind of the point of it, right? Is that when things get busy, when you're overwhelmed, when the house feels on fire, you're going to want to go do the things you want to do. And the tool is meant to go, that's real cute, but I need you to pay attention over here. And it's kind of a fun way of doing that.
Brilliant. All right. So tell people where they can find you. Tell them where they can learn more about the tool or join you for one of your webinars or trainings so they can learn more.
The easiest place is to go check out the website, getscalepilot.com, all one word. Super easy. We have a growth quiz on there, free assessments of how you're doing in the 6 engines. That's an easy way to sign up to whatever next webinar we're doing. There's information about when our accelerators are if you want to be live coached through something versus you could just download it, the tool, and use it yourself if you are a DIYer. So that's kind of the place to go for everything.
Fantastic. Thank you for taking us behind the scenes and sharing a bit about your journey and identity evolutions. And I want to wrap things up with one final question, even though I feel like this entire episode was your answer to this question. And that is, how do you scale differently and make sure that what you're doing is super aligned for you?
Yeah, you're right. I think that it was one entire answer to that question. But I think we talked about this before we started recording, and I think that you are right on that. I think what I said was like, oh, I love the title of Scale Differently, because usually in order to scale, you have to start doing things differently. And that's so counterintuitive to us, because naturally you're like, but I've done so well and everything I've done has gotten me here and I'm making this much money and look at what I've built. And so it's very counterintuitive to understand. And now, crap, I have to do things differently and look at my business differently to get to the next phase. And that's why that darn cheesy line, what got you here won't get you there, is like, oh, okay. Now that line starts to land and make sense. When you really get to that spot, when you're really like, ooh, what I've always done is no longer working or moving the needle or creating something different, that's how you have to start looking at the other areas of your business where you don't spend a lot of time looking to figure out what's the next weak link that I need to give some love and attention to.
Absolutely. All right. Any final tips for the listeners before we round this episode out?
Well, we didn't really talk about this very much, but I would just say AI is not going to solve your life. I feel like it needs to be said. I feel like there's a lot of hopes right now of everybody's just building an AI bot and hoping it'll solve all their business problems. And I think you still have to know how business works, and you still have to know how to grow a business, regardless of how amazing AI can make you in efficiency. You still have to understand the mechanics of business.
Yeah, I will second that. I love AI. I just,
Me
at the
too.
time of recording this, just wrapped up my 3-day Founder Frequency Live AI event. Absolutely love it. And one of the things that I want to emphasize that Celi said, because this is so important, is AI is not going to solve your problems. What I see is it does help you go faster, but you need to make sure you're going faster in the right direction. And if you don't have that clarity and that solid understanding and that solid foundation underneath you, you will very easily go produce more content and still not do the sales and business development. You will
Right.
go do more of the things that you gravitate towards. And if things are moving faster, you're going to accelerate the gaps between kind of what you really need for success and where you currently are, instead of getting yourself there faster. And so I love AI. I love it so much. I think it's a fantastic strategic asset. It is not a substitute in any way, shape, or form for the things that Sully was talking about in this episode. Like, I feel like if anything, the more you're going to use it, the more those things become absolutely critical. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Uh,
absolutely.
Exactly.
All right. So Sally is a genius. She's amazing. Highly encourage you to go check out her tool, go check out her work, and come back again next week. And I will see you for our next conversation.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Krista.
Thank you so much for being here. See you next week. Let's keep the conversation going over on Substack. If you head to scaledifferently.substack.com, you can join in and share your thoughts on this episode. You can ask me questions. You can ask questions of the incredible guests that are featured here. And I would absolutely love to hear from you and hear how you are scaling differently. And before you go, if you've not yet taken a moment to rate or review the show, I would be so incredibly grateful if you do so we can reach more incredible people like you and continue to help businesses completely transform the way they scale and help founders live their rich, fulfilled life.